Nation. We analyze several liberal and conservative linkage institutions and their positions on immigration. A linkage institution is an institution that connects a citizen to the inner happenings of their government. Some examples of this are the media, interest groups, and political parties, because they expose citizens to the government and current issues so that citizens can make informed decisions on how to vote and act in a society.
I had the opportunity to analyze a piece of writing published by the Federation for American Immigration Reform titled Illegal Alien, the Proper Terminology. This basically discussed FAIR's point of view on American immigration and immigration reform. The political ideology of the source is conservative. I believe the source is conservative is because on their website they say that they are an organization that wants increased border security, more traditional rates of immigration, which is around 300,000 per year, they believe, and they want an immigration policy that will best suit the American people first. All of these policies line up with the conservative ideology about immigration, and therefore, though FAIR claims to have a more moderate stance on everything, because they have both liberal and conservative viewpoints on everything, I believe that FAIR is more conservative than they are leading us to believe. Illegal alien, the proper terminology's point of view on immigration, is conservative. The entire article is talking about how we should use the term alien instead of undocumented worker, person, immigrant, etc. And it slowly devolves into an argument about comprehensive immigration reform and how this comprehensive immigration reform will not benefit. In fact, it will detract from the satisfaction of the American people. Most of the paper is actually addressing the latter issue instead of the first one, which is what the paper is titled for. This source exhibits bias because it generally argues to one side. Counter-arguments that he cites and argues against are very weak and they're very superficial and do not contribute to the full knowledge that would be beneficial to anyone receiving or looking at this article. In addition, this article cites a low amount of evidence and does not include anything that would benefit the argument from the other side. Illegal alien, the proper terminology, claims that the use of the term illegal alien to describe undocumented people in the American population is completely fair. However, their argument also expands into an argument about preventing illegal immigration and why illegal immigration is not good for the American population or the American economy. Illegal alien, the proper terminology, mainly relies on statistics and counter-arguments in order to get its point across. The statistics are not from this person's own research and are instead from reputable sources like the U.S. Census Bureau, which do add strength to the argument. For example, he states that a new immigrant is added to the U.S. population every 40 seconds, and that immigrant women, on average, have higher fertility rates than do native-born women. This use of statistics strengthens their argument because, at face value, adding statistics into your argument generally gives the idea that the author is well informed and has researched the issue extensively. This means that they are more qualified to give an opinion on the issue rather than someone who's just talking randomly without any information or any background. The author also uses counter-arguments. For example, he states, another oft-employed argument is to claim that illegal aliens just lack the proper papers, and so they are not really illegal, but rather undocumented. This strategy weakens the argument. Although the author addresses the opposing side, the author does it in a way that is condescending, as if to make a joke. He also addresses only the weak arguments of the other side. He never addresses any strong ones. So he addresses the ones that are easily refutable and are very stereotypical of belonging to the other side. This makes it hard for people to get an unbiased view on the issue at hand. Some logical fallacies I found in this article were non sequiturs, bandwagon appeals, and slippery slope arguments. In a non sequitur, the conclusion drawn from the data does not necessarily follow the data that is given. This is a logical fallacy because it means that the conclusion that is given to us is not proven to be true. Therefore, we cannot accept it as true. There is no way to tell that the conclusion is actually correct because the disparity between the evidence and the conclusion is too large and leaves something to be desired. So basically, the reader cannot follow the author's thought process. Some of the examples I found in the piece of this are a new immigrant is added to the U.S. population every 40 seconds, and that immigrant women, on average, have higher fertility rates than do native-born women. This leads to a growth in the overall population by one person every 12 seconds. Let's examine what fertility rate actually is. Fertility rate describes the average amount of children that a woman will have over the course of her entire life. Not how many children she'll have in a year, not how many children she'll have in 5 years, over the course of her entire life. Just because immigrant women have more children throughout their entire lifetime than do native-born women does not completely lead to an overall population growth by one person every 12 seconds, like he said. There is no evidence linking those two things together. Basically, you would need to do some serious number crunching to get those two things to actually mesh and make sense, and he just gives us two facts instead of actually proving why that ending part is true and why these two lead into each other, why they affect each other, and so it is a non sequitur. Another one was, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the U.S. population has grown by more than 150 million people, or by over 57%, since 1970. We would have population stability if not for increasing immigration levels. Just because population has grown does not mean that it is because of immigration. There are 4 factors mainly that influence population growth, and they are crude birth rate, crude death rate, immigration, and emigration rates. Immigration is only one of the 4 things that affect them, that affect overall population growth. Therefore, just because immigration was a lot more and the population grew, that they don't tie together. In a bandwagon appeal, the author implies that because a lot of people agree with an idea, that the idea is true. This is a logical fallacy because it relies on the fear of diverging from cultural norms instead of actual logic. Appealing to the conformist mind does not necessarily make an argument true, it just makes it popular. The author cites the fact that there is a large historical backing for using the term illegal alien to describe undocumented people. However, he never addresses why the fact that a historical record of the term would make it acceptable for use today. He states that the origin of the term dates back to ancient Rome, and that the modern usage of the term is first found in 14th century France. There are many reasons why we should not mindlessly follow the societal structure of both ancient Rome and 14th century France, but I'm not going to go over all of them. Suffice to say that there are a lot of societal differences between ancient Rome, 14th century France, and 21st century America, most of which we have fought hard to change. Humans learn from the past. We try not to repeat it. It is important to understand the difference and the fact that we should not mindlessly copy things done in ancient Rome and ancient France simply because they were done for a long time. In a slippery slope argument, the author or speaker diverges from the original topic in order to address extreme hypotheticals that contribute to the overall argument but do not actually contribute to the topic he's actually addressing. Because there is no proof that these extreme hypotheticals will happen, the argument that the speaker-author makes is not proven to be true, and therefore relies on a fear factor in order to convince people of the argument. The author of this piece believes that if we continue to allow immigrants into the country, that we are stealing away jobs as well as rights from the American people. He never provides proof for this argument, and instead relies on fear factors to get his point across. He says in this article, and I quote, "Americans, while generous and forgiving, are not about to simply brush aside the fact that millions of foreigners are living and working in this country illegally, and will not accept another mass amnesty that rewards illegal aliens and the employers who profited from hiring them at the expense of the American people." He also says those that deny immigration laws are binding are declaring that there should be inequality under the law, where some groups are not only immune from compliance, but should benefit from their offense. The problem this author has is that he never provides any proof for the arguments that he's making. He says people are immune under this law. He says people are profiting from hiring at the expense of the American people, but he never gives actual statistics. He seems to be operating under the assumption that the people who he's arguing to are people that already agree with him, and he doesn't actually have to back up most of his claims because they already agree with him. He doesn't have to work super hard to convince them of his argument. This detracts from his argument and makes its entire paper seem immature and not very well planned.
I had the opportunity to experience the point of view of Bill O'Reilly, and by extension his Fox News co-workers. Through their breakdown of the immigration issue, it becomes obvious that they hold a very conservative political ideology. I found this out while watching an episode of Real Clear Politics by Bill O'Reilly, titled Obama Gets Hammered Over Illegal Immigration. In this video, O'Reilly seems to be preaching to the choir, so to speak, since his tone invites them to hold Obama in mocking contempt with him, and probably would not have been chosen if he thought he had to convince an impartial audience, since because of it, he comes off as biased. In this video, he shows some good uses of statistics. For example, he uses statistics on immigration, like what percentage of them are illegal, what percentage are educated, etc., all from the Census Bureau and Homeland Security, which are credible government sources. He uses these in order to craft a logical argument that illegal immigrants are an economic drain. However, he doesn't make any effort to use facts which might support an argument against his view. Using the previous example, he also uses statistics to create the argument that illegal immigrants are an economic drain, but I did some further research, and it turns out that according to Adam Davidson, international business and economics correspondent at NPR, economists generally believe that when averaged over the whole country, the effect of illegal immigration is a small net positive. O'Reilly could have mentioned this as a possible alternative to his argument, but he didn't, misleadingly presenting his argument as uncontested fact. Also, he has trouble citing facts and statistics that he uses. Like, according to all the polls, most Americans do want illegal immigrants to be treated fairly. What polls? The audience doesn't know. Also, he implies or claims things with no supporting evidence or explanation. He says, if the president is not going to move the National Guard down there, which would stop people from physically crossing the border, the rest is smoke and mirrors. But he gives no explanation for why only the National Guard can stop illegal immigration. Looking at his logical reasoning, there are some things that Bill O'Reilly does right. Throughout his video, there are plenty of logical and valid arguments. However, he does have some trouble with ad hominem attacks throughout the video. This is a type of logical fallacy where he criticizes a person instead of their idea in order to take that idea down. He draws on his conservative audience's pre-existing dislikes of liberals when he says things like left-wing base and about liberal Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this woman is just off the charts, is she not? To discredit the opposing side of the issue. Invoking this dislike helps him convince the audience that the opposing view ignores the facts and can only exist in a fantasy world of self-righteousness. But it never actually addresses the points of their argument. As well as ad hominem attacks, he falls prey to using a non sequitur when he says that America's debt is approaching $18 trillion and immediately follows saying that we can't afford to support immigrants. On the surface, having a big debt would mean that you shouldn't spend money frivolously, but he never explains why immigrants result in a net loss for us. It could be that illegal immigrants actually have a net positive on the economy, and thus it would be better to have lots of illegal immigrants in order to reduce our debt. It could be a valid point not to have them because of our large debt, but because he never uses any evidence to connect it, he's implying a credibility to his argument that he never backs up. This media program is much more conservative than I am. I believe in the path to citizenship and the benefits of immigrants, whether they be illegal or not, where here O'Reilly is making a case against them. I think that this linkage institution could be helpful if it was more impartial or less substantial. What I mean by that is that if it was impartial, it could inform people about the political issues and help them make informed decisions when they vote. If it tried less to appear like one of those impartial information sources, it could act as an entertainment source which could get people interested in political issues and cause them to research them on their own. But because they use statistics to make it seem like a reputable source, coming to their conclusions through pure logic, when they don't acknowledge counter-arguments or any other side to the issue, they trick the audience into thinking they are getting an informed view on a topic, while they are only getting entertainment and one side. This means they won't bother researching more because they think they already know enough about the issue to vote, and their vote will be based on incomplete information. So, overall, real clear politics is more harmful to our democracy than helpful. Thank you for listening.